Welcome back. Last month, the central bank unveiled its 2012 roadmap for monetary and financial sector policy. It forecasts 8% growth for this year. However, LMD columnist Samantha Amarasinghe writes in the latest edition of the Biz Journal that the roadmap disappoints in not addressing external sector challenges posed by the deepening current account deficit and falling FX reserves. Benchmark's Anushan Selvaraja digs a little deeper.
Welcome to the Voice of Business. Joining me on the show this week is economist with Standard Chartered Bank and LMD columnist Samantha Amarasinghe. Now Samantha, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka released its roadmap for 2012 not long ago. Could you elaborate on the positive and the negative aspects of this?
Sure. Put simply, the roadmap highlighted some of the positive macro fundamentals and very ambitious central bank targets, but disappointed in not stating any risks. And given the weaker global growth outlook, it would have been far more insightful if this policy document discussed some of the broader global macro issues and how this would impact Sri Lanka's economy in 2012. But having said that, the intent of the roadmap is to provide direction, and to some extent it has achieved that end. And something that really comes across very strongly in the roadmap is the central bank's robust outlook for Sri Lanka's economy, forecasting 2012 growth at 8%. However, the roadmap disappointed in not addressing the external sector challenges posed by Sri Lanka's deepening current account deficit and falling foreign exchange reserves.
In your column in this month's edition of LMD, you say that tourist arrivals are likely to slow down given the fallout from the debt crisis in Europe. If this happens, how and where should we look to bolster our tourist numbers?
Given the debt crisis in Europe, growth in tourist arrivals, which was close to 31% at the end of last year, is likely to slow unless increased arrivals from Asia compensate. And although we expect Asian economies to decelerate significantly in 2012, Asia is still expected to outperform relative to other regions. So Sri Lanka should focus on some of its top markets, and these include India, the Maldives, Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, and the Middle East. If you look at the statistics, Western Europe currently accounts for 37% of tourist arrivals to Sri Lanka, followed by India, 20%, and East Asia, 11%. So the focus should largely be on Asia. And Sri Lanka will also be hosting the ICC 2020 cricket tournament this year. And we've seen from the past that such tournaments provide an incredible boost to tourist numbers.
What impact would sanctions imposed on Iran by the US and the EU have on crude oil prices if Iran should block the Strait of Hormuz, a vital link in the transportation and distribution of oil? Will the Saudis come into the equation as they have intimated?
Well, at the time of writing, we highlighted if the EU decides to ban crude oil imports from Iran, this could put some upward pressure on global crude oil prices and have severe repercussions for Sri Lanka's balance of payments, as petroleum makes up approximately 25% of the country's import bill. We do have more clarity on this now, with in fact the EU last week agreeing to implement a ban on oil imports from Iran. We think the impact is likely to be more evident in spreads between benchmark and regional crude oil prices than in the average level of crude oil prices globally. We are also aware that the embargo is not to be implemented until the 1st of July. Hence, it's likely to have a negligible impact on near-term prices. And in the meantime, we also know that importers are seeking alternatives, and Sri Lanka is in negotiations with Oman and Saudi Arabia, and we'll also be looking for waivers from the US.
Samantha, how will Sri Lanka's balance of payments fare in 2012?
In our view, Sri Lanka's balance of payments is likely to come under significant pressure in 2012. The year-to-date trade deficit has in fact widened to over 8.8 billion as of end of November last year, surpassing the record full-year deficit of $6 billion recorded in 2008. And in fact, the current account deficit is touching close to $4 billion. Latest central bank data also shows that imports have increased by approximately 78%, far outpacing exports, which have increased by only 12%. Hence, it is imperative in our view that the expected $25 billion in foreign inflows in 2012, which the central bank has projected in its policy roadmap, materializes. We also feel that export revenues and foreign direct investment may fall short due to the weaker global growth outlook. The central bank's export growth projection of 19% for 2012 appears somewhat ambitious given that the US and Europe are Sri Lanka's key export markets, and that competitor countries have also depreciated their currencies. Projections for remittance inflows and tourism earnings seems achievable, but we expect foreign direct investment to fall short of the central bank's forecast by around $500 million amid the prevailing global uncertainty. So given the worsening trade deficit and balance of payment situation, this is a key concern for us.
That was Samantha Amarasinghe speaking to Benchmark's Anushan Selvaraja. That's all we have time for. Do join us again next week on Benchmark.